Good evening and welcome to CosmoQuest's coverage of the Progress MS-14 launch. I'm your host this evening, Gordon Dewis, also known as Keeper of Maps in Twitch and Discord. The goal of this mission is to resupply the International Space Station. We will be following the NASA live coverage when it comes up, but first a little bit about the mission. So, as I mentioned, the goal of the mission is to resupply the International Space Station. Prior to October last year, the launch was actually planned for last week on April 16th, but it was subsequently rescheduled. The docking of the spacecraft with the ISS was initially expected 2 days after liftoff, but as you'll find out this evening, they're only going to do 2 orbits and then do a rendezvous. A bit about the rocket. The rocket is a Soyuz 2-1A rocket. It's lifting off from Site 31 in Baikonur. T0 is at 0151 41 UTC, which is about 2151 Eastern, or about 0451 Moscow time. The first stage consists of 4 boosters, 4 RD-107 boosters. They're going to be strapped to the second stage core, a single RD-108 engine. There's a third stage which sits on top of this, and it's connected by a little bit of lattice, and it's a single RD-110 engine. The orbital inclination is going to be 51.67 degrees towards the equator. And we're going to see about 9 minutes of flight or so from liftoff until the third stage shuts off. And the separation will be around 02 UTC or 2200 Eastern. And so the docking will rendezvous at the aft port of the Zvezda service module about 3 hours and 21 minutes after launch. And they've got a projected time of 0512 UTC or about 1:12 a.m. Eastern. We're not going to be covering the docking, sorry. If the automated docking doesn't work, however, cosmonauts Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Wagner from the Soyuz MS-15 crew, which we watched last week, will use a manual remote control system called Toru. So I've got one eye on the chat. I've got Paranor, who is going to keep me on track. So let's go. Let's set up the bingo card. Paranor, if you can bring up the browser, that would be great. So if you can see on screen, I've started putting in some words. We've got NASA. We're going to add Roscosmos. Roscosmos, if I can type. We've got nominal, we've got MECO, so main engine cutoff, SECO, second engine cutoff. We'll have a square for the third engine cutoff. There's always a word for weather. We've got Roscosmos, we've got fairings. What other words would you like to see added to this? If you type them in chat, I will add them to the card. And I'll apologize now because I will mangle the Russian names. So we can add orbit because that's a good safe word. We can have hold. Hopefully we won't have a hold. This is an instantaneous launch window, so if it doesn't go today, it will almost certainly be rescheduled. Let's put altitude. Max Q, of course, is always good. That's when the spacecraft is undergoing maximum dynamic pressure. We can have separation. There won't be any dogs barking on stream this evening because I don't have any dogs. I don't have any cats. So you're going to be stuck with me and NASA in a little bit. We can add any member of the ISS crew. Yep, just a pretty face. All right, I'm going to add a few more words. Excellent.
Will be awake through the docking of the Progress vehicle to the International Space Station. The commander of the International Space Station and Expedition 63, NASA's Chris Cassidy, is asleep at this hour. He is likely to be awake by the time the Progress arrives in the vicinity of the International Space Station for an expected
Cats
docking.
barking on stream would indeed be a very bad
Central
luck
time, 1:12
square to
a.m.
have.
Eastern Time. It's just 1 hour after sunrise at the launch site of the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The Soyuz 2.1A booster on Site 31's launch pad is fully fueled, ready for launch. The countdown is proceeding on track.
So we can have any words in Russian as one of the squares.
Launch engineers in the blockhouse at Baikonur.
And I see that we have Star Strider, who is our
ship that is
fearless leader of CosmoQuest.
Space Station is loaded
and she's
with
just come on stream. Good evening, Star Strider.
1,543 pounds of propellant, 110 pounds of oxygen, 926 pounds of
I
water,
will have to
and
work
almost
at getting some
3,000
maps
pounds
on
of
the
dry
wall behind me.
cargo,
You are absolutely
2.78
correct.
tons of food,
What I
fuel,
do, what I have, but
supplies
you can't
being
see, are
delivered
rolls
for
of
the
maps in the
Expedition
corner.
63 crew on board the International Space Station. The launch into a two-orbit fast-track rendezvous for the Progress resupply vehicle will come at 8:51 and 41 seconds Central Time, 9:51 and 41
I just
seconds
realized
Eastern
that I
Time.
don't have the official.
The International
I don't
Space
have the
Station
video
actually
running
will
anywhere,
pass
so I don't
directly
know what
over the
NASA is
Baikonur
saying at this
Cosmodrome
point.
41 seconds after launch and will leapfrog past the Progress, which will
so
then
what I've got
be in
here,
a
well,
mode
think
for
about some
two-orbit
words.
rendezvous after
And
a pre-programmed series of
to add to the bingo
firings
card. And what
not
you can
only
see
raise,
here is a
the
graphic that
Progress's
we
orbit to match
found
that
that
of the International
basically
Space
describes
Station,
the
but to fine-tune its
the
path
launch from
to
liftoff, the mission from liftoff
outpost.
until it separates
8 minutes and 46
and
seconds
then
from
goes
the
off to
time of
catch up
launch,
with the
until
International
the
Space
Progress
Station in about
separates from
2
the
orbits.
third stage of its Soyuz booster,
So you can see that
and begins to deploy
stage
its
1
solar arrays and
separation
navigational
is
antennas
about
for the chase to
120
catch up
seconds
to the International Space Station.
After T0, after liftoff. The fairings separate about a minute and a bit later. Second engine cutoff will then take place, and then there's separation about at T plus 287 seconds. And then the third stage actually will start before the second stage is separated. And so there's a lattice work. And then once everything is stable, it will eject, it will separate from the second stage.
As mentioned, tonight's launch of the Progress resupply ship from Site 31 of the Baikonur Cosmodrome, coming off the same launch pad that Chris Cassidy, Anatoly Ivanishin, and Ivan Wagner launched off of just 2 weeks ago for their 4-orbit rendezvous to reach the International Space Station and the start of a 6.5-month mission on the orbital outpost. We are just 1 week past the time that the departing Expedition 62 crew, that was Oleg Skropochka and NASA astronauts Andrew Morgan and Jessica
I gather
Biel
that the video is well underway, so I'm going to ask Paranor just to drop my audio down, and we're going to put NASA's video up and listen to NASA for a little bit.
Post-flight debriefings. The Soyuz 2.1A booster and its Progress resupply ship, encapsulated in its upper stage, rolled out to the launch pad a short distance on Wednesday morning, just after 7 a.m. Baikonur time. You can see on the upper stage of the Soyuz booster the logo 75th. That is representative of the fact that this launch of the 75th Progress is coming on the 75th anniversary of the day that Soviet and American troops met at the Elbe River near Torgau in Germany, marking an important step toward the end of World War II in Europe. Marking that moment in history, the Soyuz booster is decorated today with memorial logos as it sits on the launch pad fully fueled at Site 31 Roscosmos. The Russian Federal Space Agency is calling this vehicle the Victory rocket. That rollout took less than 40 minutes from the time it left the integration building at Site 31 until the time it was raised vertically on its launch pad, allowing launch pad technicians to hook up electrical cables and data cables to set the stage for launch, which is scheduled just 15 minutes from now.
Okay, and so you can see, and I'm sure that they have said that this is
At the time of launch,
mission
the
control.
International Space Station will be flying about 260 miles above the Earth, crossing the border between Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, 329 statute miles behind the Soyuz booster. And as mentioned, it will leapfrog past the Progress and the Soyuz, enabling the Progress to begin its trek to catch up to the station just 2 orbits or just over 3 hours after launch. The sequence of events following launch calls for the Soyuz's first stage separation to occur just 1 minute 58 seconds after launch. The launch shroud jettison will come at about the 3 minute 3 second mark. That will be the precursor to second stage shutdown at 4 minutes and 37 seconds, and second stage separation 10 seconds later. The third stage skirt jettisoning will occur 10 seconds after that at just under the 5 minute mark, and third stage shutdown and orbital insertion will come at the 8 minute 46 second mark, spacecraft separation just seconds after that, setting the stage for the solar array deployment and navigational antenna deployment on the Progress as it begins its journey to reach the International Space Station and to docking at 12:12 a.m. Central Time, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time, Saturday morning.
Yep, and as he mentioned, it will be attempting an automated launch, or an automated docking rather, with the International Space Station. If that doesn't work, 2 cosmonauts who came up last week, Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Wagner, will use a manual remote control system, and they actually did a rehearsal of this a couple of days ago to make sure that they know how the system works and they're familiar with it. And so I guess, I'm sitting here in front of the camera at where I live in Ottawa, Canada, and I've got Paranor, who is on the east coast of Canada, and he is actually producing the show today. Starstrider, last I saw of Starstrider, she was in a hammock with all her floofs. I suspect she's probably moved inside by now, but
This is Mission Control Houston
that's
coming
where
up
she
on
was.
the 10.5-minute mark before launch.
Bingo up. And so we've got about 10 minutes before launch.
Countdown
So
preparations are continuing at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan as we approach the 10-minute mark until launch.
And so we've still got a couple of minutes to finish up putting some words for the bingo card. So what other words could we have? We do have liftoff there. We can put the atmosphere.
Once the Progress reaches its preliminary orbit, a series of pre-programmed engine firings will be conducted to place the Progress on a pinpoint path to the International Space Station. The so-called automated rendezvous sequence is scheduled to begin just before 10 p.m. Central Time tonight. That will enable the Progress to arrive in the vicinity of the International Space Station for a fly-around maneuver that will precisely align the forward docking probe on the Progress vehicle to the aft port of the Zvezda service module, to which the Progress will link up to just after midnight Central Time Saturday morning.
All right, so I'm going to click the generate. I've added a couple of extra words. I'm going to click generate. And I'm going to copy the link to Paranor so he can drop it into the chat. Good evening, Kerbal. So if you're just joining us, I'm Keeper of Maps, and we are watching the Progress MS-14 launch. This is a mission to resupply the International Space Station. And this is taking place, this is happening right now in Baikonur, Russia. There are enough words. I put a few extra words in there. Not a huge number of words because I didn't see a whole lot of suggestions coming up from the
readiness reports
from the chat.
The blockhouse at the Baikonur Cosmodrome indicate that everything is in good shape. Inside 8 minutes now.
So we've got about 8 minutes till launch.
At the 7-minute mark, a key is inserted into a start mechanism, and then the key is rotated, transitioning the vehicle, the Soyuz 2.1A booster, to an automatic mode. It's essentially equivalent to a ground launch sequencer.
And so, we're living in interesting times right now. And so CosmoQuest and the CosmoQuest community we're doing some more content. We're going to be hosting more on our Twitch channel. And we've got an active community on Discord where you can talk science, and you can even find other people to join you in playing some online games. There's almost every night there are many games of Ticket to Ride that you can join in. And so you can find out links to everything that is going on at cosmoquest.org.
The report from Baikonur is that the Progress vehicle is now on autonomous power as we approach the 6-minute mark until launch.
And so they've basically disconnected the external power. It's now running basically on its own batteries. Yes, on internal powers, as our instro says.
Down to the Baikonur Cosmodrome just inside 5 minutes until launch. The activation of recorders in the Launch Control Center have been completed. Telemetry from the launch vehicle is being received. Everything is in good shape down at Baikonur. We're coming up on the purging of fuel lines and other elements of the rocket engines to fireproof them by removing vapors of fuel and oxidizer. This feed now that you're seeing of the progress on the launch pad, courtesy of Roscosmos, as we are approaching the 4-minute mark.
All right, so we're just coming up on 4 minutes to launch. And so I see that we've got Limp Rimble, who has said that, yeah, extension cords would have to be really long. You're really right. And Sully Two Cats, I did model rocketry when I was a kid. And yeah, you have to put the clips on properly or it just doesn't work.
What you're seeing here is the graphic view of the Soyuz 2.1A booster on the launch pad. This is generated by real-time telemetry being received at the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov as we approach the 3-minute mark until launch.
Yep, they are indeed upping their CGI game, our Instro. It's pretty cool that you know the graphics like this can now be updated in real time using actual data from the spacecraft and from all the launch monitoring systems. And I want to thank Tom Van Scotter. Thank you very much for resubscribing at the
Standing
tier
by
1
for
level.
fuel and
Wow.
oxidizer tanks to be pressurized. This will optimize the fuel flow to the various stages on the Soyuz 2.1A booster and to provide structural rigidity to the launch vehicle.
That 23 minutes or 23 months is very impressive. Thank you very much, Tom Van Scotter.
Now just 2 minutes until launch.
And so just as a reminder, the first 4-stage boosters, which are strap-on boosters, they separate about 2 minutes into flight. And then about a minute later, we'll see the payload fairings separate. And then about 2 minutes, a minute or minute and a half after that, we'll see the second stage cut off. And then the third stage will ignite shortly before the separation of the second stage. And it'll go until about 9 minutes after launch.
And now about a minute away from launch, you see the progress on the launch pad, fully fueled, drainage has been completed. There are two umbilical towers that are buttressed up against the side of the Soyuz 2.1A. The first should be retracting momentarily.
All right, everything is looking really good for the launch. So we're inside about a minute or so. So I'm just going to sit here quietly and watch the launch with the rest of you guys and listen to the commentary.
We're standing by for the launch command. And the first of the umbilicals now retracting. Once the second umbilical retracts, that will initiate the launch command for main engine start. There goes the second umbilical. We have a go for main engine start. We have main engine start. Turbo pumps now coming up to flight speed. And liftoff. Liftoff of the 75th Progress resupply ship on a fast-track 2-orbit flight to the International Space Station. Roll, pitch, and yaw program are in. The Soyuz 2.1A booster arcing out to the northeast from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. All parameters are reported to be normal. The International Space Station is now flying directly over the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The Soyuz now moving through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, going supersonic as it heads downrange. Soyuz traveling at 2,500 miles an hour, some 15 miles in altitude now, 10 miles downrange from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. All parameters are reported to be normal by the engineers at the blockhouse in Baikonur as we stand by for first stage shutdown and separation. And we have first stage shutdown. Second stage engines up and running in good shape. The flight is reported to be proceeding in nominal fashion. Good structural parameters being reported. The Soyuz second stage is guiding the Progress resupply ship on a precise path to its preliminary orbit. And we have reports of launch shroud jettison. All the vehicle parameters are in good shape. Good engine performance from the second stage engines.
Yeah, as our instructor said, launch shroud is the fairing.
And this view from a camera on the upper stage of the Soyuz 2.1A. The Soyuz traveling now at about 7,300 miles an hour. 81 miles in altitude, 190 miles downrange from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. The second stage engine continues to function normally, all good structural parameters being reported. And we're standing by for second stage shutdown and separation. All good reports coming in from the blockhouse at Baikonur. Good structural parameters being reported.
So just a reminder that as the third stage actually ignites before it's separated from the second stage. And so maybe
flight continues to proceed in nominal fashion.
The little piece we saw pop off may actually have been one of the, possibly a panel on the connector
pitch
between.
And roll. Good reports coming in from Baikonur as the Soyuz continues to do its job. Well over halfway through its ascent to place the Progress on a path to the International Space Station. Third stage engine performance up and running in good shape as we cross the 7-minute mark into the flight. About 1 minute and 40 seconds of powered flight remaining.
Oh, and so now we're on a graphic
Animation now being generated by real-time telemetry from the Soyuz 2.1A booster, as we're about 1 minute and 15 seconds away from third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation. The Soyuz booster traveling almost 13,000 miles an hour, 122 miles in altitude, more than 600 miles downrange from the Baikonur Cosmodrome.
Okay, we want to go back to video.
Third stage engine continues to burn in perfect fashion as we cross the 8-minute mark. Good stable vehicle being reported. As soon as the Progress separates from the third stage, control of the flight of the Progress will revert back to the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow. We're standing by now for third stage shutdown and spacecraft separation.
And there it goes.
And we have third stage shutdown and separation. Next event will be the deployment of the Progress's solar arrays and navigational antennas. And you see that function now in work. And all of the appendages have now been deployed, the solar arrays and the navigational antenna and the TV boom on the Progress. A perfect launch and a perfect ride to its preliminary orbit. Launch occurring at 8:51 and 41 seconds p.m. Central Time, 9:51:41 Eastern Time. A good ride uphill on the Soyuz 2.1A booster. And so the Progress chase is now on to reach the International Space Station, with docking scheduled at 12:12 a.m. Central Time, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time.
And so basically the Soyuz, the Progress is going to chase after and catch up with the
And so about an
with the
hour
international.
or so after sunrise at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, the Soyuz 2.1A booster took flight, delivering the Progress resupply vehicle, the 75th Progress resupply ship, to a perfect orbit, a preliminary orbit. A series of engine firings, pre-programmed engine burns, now will raise the Progress's orbit and put it on a path to reach the International Space Station. There's our first view through the Progress's external television camera. All of the Progress's systems are in excellent shape. The Progress carrying 2.78 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the residents of the International Space Station. We will be back on the air at 11:30 p.m. Central Time, 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time, with our rendezvous and docking coverage, docking scheduled again at 12:12 a.m. Central, 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday morning. So be back with us in a couple of hours and rejoin our coverage at that time. Until then, this is Mission Control Houston.
Excellent. Excellent. So that was a perfect launch so far. I mean, the launch was fine. Now we just wait basically for Progress to catch up to the ISS. Um, we're not going to be doing that live here, I don't think, because that's at 1:12 a.m. Eastern Time, and I probably should be asleep or playing Ticket to Ride, one of the two. So I would just like to remind you, that as a part of helping to keep us all occupied in these really weird times, we're going to be hosting a lot of additional content on our Twitch channel. And I just want to remind you that CosmoQuest has an active community on Discord where you can talk science and even find other people to join you in playing some online games. And you can find links to everything that is going on at cosmoquest.org. And so I just want to thank my producer, Paranor001, who is working tirelessly in the background, stitching all the video streams together and making the audio do what it should. The Daily Space is a product of the Planetary Science Institute. It's a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to exploring our solar system and beyond. And so we are here thanks to the generous contributions of people like you. And though I know these are weird times, the best way you can support us is through patreon.com/CosmoQuestX, but you don't have to give anything. You can also just join the community. There's lots of ways for you to get active without actually having to spend any money. And so I just want to thank you all very much for watching the stream. And I'd like you to have a good rest of your evening. Stay safe, wash your hands, and we'll talk to you soon.